Participant.
Yes, definitely, when they are on.
We could do that
Okay,
if you
you
like.
guys are on.
I can do it. Welcome everybody today to our deliberation session for the shooting committee for Spokane County. Hi to the Zoom people. We have received some more public notifications since our meeting last, and I'm wondering, did the committee have a chance to review what
Yep.
came in?
Yep.
So maybe let's just go around the table and get some impressions of where we're at and what we think of this property.
May I suggest we introduce ourselves and just for the record?
Sure. I'll start. Robin Ball, Chair of the Spokane Shooting Committee.
My name is Mike Britton, Clark Bergerud,
Jeff Ewan, David Bray,
Tom Miller, Vice Chair.
Jeff Meyer,
Robert Brock, staff. Spokane County Building and Planning.
And then Ella Marush, the clerk.
Excellent. So who would like to kick off comments?
oh,
All right. You're up.
So I would say to me, overriding, I'd really like to see, first of all, what the deputy who's gonna go out there and report what he said. Just because, you know, that really would put a pretty official nail in the safety situation, I think. With regard to all of the emails and all of the stuff we heard last time. I think it's kind of crummy, maybe even for the process. If there's no attempt to ever notify the person being affected, the person, you know, the petition's being written for, against. No idea to arbitrate things, no discussion about, well, hey, if you add me to your email list or whatever, I think it's just, there should be that. I think some of the complaints really are overstated, you know, in the way that it's a lot of hyperbole, it seemed to me, added to it, and that's just me. One person in the new stuff said, well, these things are just scary. You know, these weapons are just scary. That was a quote in one of the emails. Something that I noted, just going through the police stuff on the first meeting, was that all of the police involvement seemed to be on July evenings. I think there were 2, maybe 3, I can't remember. And then in the new emails, there was a discussion about, hey, you know, this one birthday event in a July evening, which was more extended, you know, time shooting and probably more varied types of shooting. But someone in the emails put forth the idea that timing of that, and I noticed it, was pretty interesting because it was almost like what they proposed in the email was, hey, this complaining neighbor was aware of this birthday party coming up and the timing of the petition and the timing of the police visits. It's almost like it was a setup, really, honestly. Probably not, but that was my impression. So overall, and also I guess the other overriding thing is it's definitely not, to me, one of these situations where the complaining people are, you know, one person wrote, hey, there's 16 other complaining people on the petition. But petitions are petitions, you know, and there was one also email in there that said, well, I really wasn't aware of what the ramifications of this would be when they contacted me, and I feel a little bit kind of deceived, or if you will, or misunderstood. So I don't find it persuasive that, yeah, there's 16 other signatures. I mean, a lot of people just go along, get along. They aren't here commenting. You know, there aren't a real big amount. There's some very hardcore commenters. And on all of that, I think that we should turn it down. So that's me.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
I was up there about an hour and a half ago and made 2 circles around the whole proposed area. And it's a lot different than what I saw on the map. I went through the map of the parcels and I counted yes those people who signed the petition and no those people who didn't. And of each group, some of them in each group, submitted comments, excuse me. So there were 19, or 16 yes, 9 no, as I counted them, because they didn't sign the petition or they submitted a letter or both. In the west one half of the area, there were 10 in favor of recommending the restriction, 4 opposed. In the east one half, which from the map appears to be a lot more open space, there were 6 who are in favor of the restriction and 5 who are not. So it's a little different, west side to east side. And driving around it a couple of times convinced me that I wouldn't shoot there. I just wouldn't. But I live out in the country and I shoot out in the country all the time. So it really is kind of close quarters. I looked at the berm, both the pictures and real life, and it would stop bullets, but you better keep the muzzle where it belongs.
Were
So
you able to get close enough to see the depth in which?
no,
it's dug
no, I
down?
didn't walk onto the property, but the pictures are pretty clear. You know, it's several feet deep and 20 feet wide, I think. As long as you keep the muzzle there, you know, the problem is if you don't keep the muzzle there, there are a lot of places you could hit. And I found it odd that people who would be least affected, for example, in the northeast corner, were in favor of it, and people much closer were opposed to the proposed restriction. So that's a little mysterious to me. I think it's a close question in my mind, simply because I'm not used to that kind of nearness to neighbors. And a center fire bullet would land anywhere in that proposed area if you wanted it to.
Or beyond. Yeah,
Definitely, yeah.
You know, if I were to shoot there, it would be rimfire suppressed or something like that. But that's just me. I'm used to more space. And I think it's notable that some people who are opposed to the restriction are some of the people who live the closest. And some of the people who live the furthest away and would otherwise be unaware are in favor of it. I have a little diagram if anybody wants to look at it.
my own.
Okay, same idea.
Yes.
Seems just a little close, which makes it a tough call.
David,
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything these two gentlemen have said. But I do take a different tack to the whole situation. I see this more as a noise complaint. I don't see any kind of reference to anything other than speculation regarding damages, personal injuries, shooting at ducks, whatever. If it's within this commission's capabilities, my recommendation would be to recommend some noise abatement for the owners of the shooting area and forward that to the county commissioners. Maybe they could follow up with something regarding time, buffering the area somehow. But I would not support this petition. I would vote against it.
I would like to chime into what David said a little bit. Reading the ordinance that's effective, we can recommend, among other things, that the commissioners hold an open public hearing on the matter. I just thought I'd point that out.
yes.
So
And I do recall that. What I don't recall, and maybe Robert, you can help me, is how restrictive we can be in our notice to the commissioners and what our findings are to the commissioners. As far as noise abatement, time restrictions, those things. Are there restrictions on us and what information they need?
I think you have to make findings, and I was gonna suggest this at the end, that the process was adequate, that notice was correct, that the public was heard, and that you're making a recommendation based on these reasons. And says, whatever your reasons are, whatever your recommendation is. And, yeah, so, and I would say that I think the board probably relies on you folks to hear this matter, because they have many other things that
Right.
they need to hear, so they're relying on you, because they've selected you guys as basically subject matter experts in this topic, so, it is possible for them to hold their own hearing, but,
Well, I'm just thinking that the way the ordinance is written in general terms doesn't give us a lot of latitude. It's a no shooting area or it's not. You know, I mean, they don't really address tailor making. A lot of these areas could be tailor made.
Remember the officer brought up, they can petition for, and it's an annual thing for do certain things.
That would be in a no shooting area.
Yeah.
You can get a permit to have a range. That's,
And they do variances fairly often. We were all involved with the one south of Spokane, where a variance was issued after we had gone through this process.
that does appear to be what the code says, that if a new no shooting area is established, there are exceptions, and most of those end with a permit from the sheriff's office.
Can I tag on to my previous
Sure,
out of cycle? That's why I think it's really important to hear from the deputy. Because there was a presumption, I think, or at least that's what I took from what he said at the last meeting. That if we did decide to make it a no shooting zone for whatever good reasons. That if he was called in to look at that and assessed it as a good, safe setup. That they just get a variance, and then you really haven't solved anything for all those people out there. That don't like noise, and I agree with you. I mean, I think it's really all about that lady falling off her horse, honestly. And noise,
noise,
yeah. So.
Okay.
That was my.
all right. David, did you have anything else to add on to that?
No, to me, it's very cut and dried. I firmly believe that it's a noise complaint more than anything else. But that they tagged on to the shooting range as a vehicle to eliminate the noise. And it's a simple solution without declaring it a no shooting area. If you can have the owners perhaps work with the neighbors, establishing times, days, etc., where shooting would be okay. That would give neighbors a heads up to leave town if they feel so inclined, or to just simply accept it as being part of the neighborhood. And I've been out there too. It's a nice area. It's a very nice area. But I really didn't see any threat to anybody. It's a good shooting area. So I'm just making it up as I go along right now. So that's it. I'm not for it at all.
Okay,
So it's already been mentioned, and then I would encourage all parties to work collaboratively together on this matter. But also being involved with this advisory group for quite some time, I have reservations to recommending creating an island in the middle of, and then there's allowed shooting outside of that window. And this group has had this conversation in the past, and our preference is not to make that recommendation when possible.
Works for me.
Which adds to the point that in the testimony and in the writing, there's neighbors shooting across the road and over yonder here.
Exactly.
And they're right now attributing most of that to this, but it isn't gonna alleviate it.
And as one of the individuals who testified, they were concerned about scope creep and how this could affect neighboring properties and infringe upon them. So
Well, I could be sure that if they prevailed on this, that they'd be after the next one that is a noise idea.
Well,
It just seemed
no shooting
logical.
area is pretty close to this already.
it was Mr. Blackwell who mentioned who doesn't live there, by the way, who mentioned the issue of creep.
And he lives over here. over this. Well, I gotta say, I focused on the comment, to be sure of your target, what lies beyond it, the safety aspects. And then I looked at the picture as given to us where the range is. And what I noticed right behind it is a building that you see. And from hunting, training period, that would say that's an unsafe place to shoot. If you look beyond the shooting area, it's got buildings behind it. You know, it's kind of like shooting on animals on the top of a hill.
I'm not sure this photo does justice to the landscape. Or where they are standing when they're shooting with
They
handgun.
provided it, but yeah.
With handgun, I know they're closer to the dirt
Sure.
berm.
Well, they mentioned high-powered rifles too, and being 150 yards to shoot and practice high-powered rifles, that's a waste of friggin' time.
Yeah, and the sighting in at dusk.
Doesn't ring with me at all.
Doesn't work at all either, so. Okay, anything else from you?
No,
The last package we got there does show a kind of a perspective where the guy's standing
No,
in the
it's-
bottom of the balloon, kind
Okay.
of shows a little bit of the scope of the height.
much closer.
There was
Mhm.
more dimensions mentioned in some of the literature, so I did review all the literature. Like you, I have a concern. I think the complaint originates from safety and noise. The person, opponent, Mr. Duff and his wife had an issue with falling off a horse due to startling. Horses can be startled by pheasants or any number of things. My wife's fallen off of a horse when a pheasant jumped out of the collarbone. Stuff like that happened.
Last year I talked to a couple of sheriffs, and they said they get noise complaints occasionally and from shooting areas. People moving in, not being aware of it. And they just say, that's the shooting area. That's just the way it is. And that's kind of, I think, how most of the sheriffs respond to people calling in about noise.
Generally, I come from a perspective of probably almost everybody in the room, and that is that you don't want to add something and take away somebody's rights and privileges in the first place.
Absolutely.
And no shooting, just to begin from that perspective. The other side of the coin is a person like the proponent has a right to enjoy it quietly as property in the evenings and stuff like that. One of the things that the shooter area mentioned was the text messages, and that sounds like an exceptionally good idea. Maybe he can text and say that plan on shooting at 6 o'clock on Tuesday night or something like that. There was a whack provided that mentioned shooting areas and when you could shoot and not shoot. Areas that you shouldn't shoot would be near within 500 feet of residences or buildings. And two of the buildings by their own dimensions were within the 500 feet. All the rest of them were further than 500 feet. I have no concern about the safety of the facility. I've shot extensively. I live out in the country in very similar circumstances. Every one of my neighbors shoots at any time of the day or night. Well, they don't shoot at night, but they shoot it when it's convenient for them, you know what I'm saying? And so I have no concern about the safety here. This is a short range for a center fire or some automatics that shoot rapidly and may have muzzle climb or something that goes along with shooting rapidly. The noise issue, the neighbors have the right to not hear that noise if they don't want to hear it. If they're entertaining guests or having a wedding reception in their backyard or something like that at sunset on a nice July evening, it's nice to not hear shooting. One thing I wanted to mention on the record was one of the persons within the interior area that did not sign is a cousin of my wife's, Josh Ollinger, and he was not in favor of this because he had concerns of addressing protection of his livestock. And occasionally, if there's some legal hunting that he could do, this might be impinged upon by having a no shooting area. And the fact that if you do have a no shooting area and somebody calls you in and you've done a legal activity, whether you have the sheriff's permit or not, you're still going to have people call in. You're going to have the sheriff's department having to address that. So having Officer Pindell or some representative talking about how they would handle a no shooting versus a shooting area out here. If they know it's a no shooting area, they're gonna have to dispatch somebody out there. If they know that it's a shooting area, then they may want to ask more questions over the phone to determine whether or not they're gonna allocate some personnel to go out there. Pros and cons are pretty simple. The neighborhood considerations, you gotta be considerate of your neighbors all the time. You should always get along with them if you can. Proponent has a right to shoot his guns. I firmly believe it. He needs to have a safe background, and the safety is the concern of the neighbors that within, within visual sight of that shooting area. My first impression out there was these houses are awful close together, and that I wouldn't like to live that close to shooting. Where I live, the population, it's a little less dense. The island and shooting area is definitely a concern. This is gonna be the seed for the person next to them, and the person to the north, and the person to the east. They will continue to expand that no shooting area, and you'll have to go through the same scenario again and again. The site has trained and supervised shooting, which I think encourages the safety issue. The sheriff has no issue with the safety issue here. He said so in his reports. If I was able to put limits on it, I would say there'd be no shooting between sunup and sundown. But that doesn't seem to be a problem if you base what you read on persons that shoot as opposed to those that don't shoot. So,
That's a great thing. That was my hyperbole thing.
the population density out there is just about what I would consider putting in a no shooting area. The structure of the land is kind of a slight basin that faces east, and it's a perfectly conductive to sound going toward that direction. And so the sound is really an issue. If a guy put up a board batten fence or something like that, you could probably reduce the noise by quite a bit. In basic training, they had board battens over the tops and down the sides for you veterans, if you remember those days. And that reduced the neighbors' noise impact substantially. As far as putting conditions on these, were just recommendations to the commissioners. And my recommendation is to not, I don't support putting in a no shooting area here, but I do put in, would say that this group has a good idea to put in the recommendations that would alleviate some of the conflicts and some of the suspicions that the persons that wanted the no shooting area.
Well, I kind of echo all of the same sentiments around the table. I did not get on the property to see the depth. But
Yeah, that picture really.
That's a
is
good
all you
photo.
need.
that picture is way better. Yeah, I did look at that. That picture is way better than the first one we thought. So it does give you a better visual. I don't disagree with the sound baffling ideas, and I think that there are ways to make the neighbors more comfortable by maybe baffling even above this berm line and then down both sides. It doesn't take a lot to reduce that sound, especially when you're shooting, smaller calibers. I question the validity of shooting high power rifles there. I mean, I think that based on the closeness of the neighbors, that a centerfire rifle could be problematic in that environment. I think you have less concerns with a centerfire handgun. Personally, everything I shoot is suppressed unless I'm in an environment where I don't need to be. But anything outdoors I shoot would be suppressed.
More accurate.
It's more fun for me.
The subsonic ammunition is bad too.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So I agree that with those who say we should probably leave that open for shooting in this neighborhood. I am, and this is just society is at large, so bear with me for a moment, but so often we don't know who our neighbors are, and we're not having conversations with them. I think that neighborhood needs to be kind of brought into the fold. If they are not shooters, maybe they should be invited to shoot some rimfire and try it out and see what it's about and find out it's just really not that scary. But short of that, my recommendation to the commissioners would be to not close this area down.
I agree.
Shall we take a vote?
Take a vote. All in favor of leaving it a shooting area?
I'm gonna be opposed.
Anybody opposed? One opposition.
You're fired.
Make sure he gets his comments in.
Yes, and
Absolutely.
all the comments are there.
Findings of fact and statements. of
So that's what we'll have
Yes.
to produce findings of fact.
Yes.
And I guess we should probably discuss that a little bit. It sounds like it's 6-1, to not recommend this be a no shooting area. Do we want to articulate some reasons for this, as a group, or, put in the form of a motion, the reason why you don't want to go with that?
You need that in the form of a motion or just
Well, we could,
you
we
need
could,
context?
yeah, I guess context for the findings, because
Okay.
what we'll do is we'll produce the findings and we'll email them to you, and you can sign them digitally.
Okay.
We can do that, correct, Ella?
Yes, as long as everyone has a great email. If I send it out, Adobe sign, it'll ask you to sign it and then you just.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to send it off.
Yeah.
Most of the time that works for me,
Yeah.
and sometimes it doesn't.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
There was discussion about density out there, there was
Okay.
discussion about, this safety of the situation.
There's other mitigating factors that could be implemented
Right.
to help
Right.
with the concerns that have been raised.
Any thought about cartridge or caliber restrictions? Any recommendations?
That could be a source for a great debate.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So
That's a
think we're gonna
slippery
put that
slope, I
debate
think.
in
I really do.
the-
You know, you start getting into half measures, dictating stuff, and it's
Okay.
just a
Yeah.
not good idea.
I probably would, despite the fact for me personally, I probably wouldn't be shooting center fire rifle there. But,
Neither would I.
but I would not,
Yeah.
but I would not impose that on someone else on this particular
And
site.
with that statement, Robin, you have extensive knowledge about weaponry that most people don't. So.
Well, I'm thinking, I've met my match around this table without a doubt, for guys that know way more about center fire rifle than I do. So do we wanna just come up with, a list of reasons
Sure.
to oppose it?
I can start with the safety, that safety was not our concern, and the reason that safety wasn't concerned was we had sheriffs visiting the site and had no issue with the conditions there. The shooting backstop is adequate for bullet retention. The WAC identifies distances to other buildings and structures, and they're all contained. If this structure, this backstop does do that, then the safety is addressed in that issue.
I'm gonna challenge you on the safety and the sheriff. Didn't he say they don't make that judgment because of the liability issues? So they aren't really saying good or bad.
They're not
Correct,
certified
they
on the
don't.
backstop.
But they have the evaluator, you know, who makes a recommendation, doesn't decide, doesn't assume
Yeah, but they
liability, I
The
suppose.
recommendation is just to approve a variance. They don't
It's not
actually do.
Certify a
safety.
gun range.
No,
Okay, so it's sort of a neutral then, really,
Right.
honestly.
That's,
It's the opinion of the individual officer.
which is not for the sheriff's department, actually.
Also, I think to your point about the 500 feet, I think you raised
He
it,
said that.
or you did, yeah. I noticed the closest one in the thing, at least that I noticed from last time, was 495 feet. I'm just wondering how you chain that, you lays that, what'd you do, you know what I mean?
Oh, it's in their picture, isn't it?
It's whatever they say.
But I'm
Yeah.
just saying in case somebody brought that up, because, you know,
Not that it matters, but I think that WAC is referring to public property, like DNR property.
That's what they recommend for shooting areas.
Yeah, right,
They
right.
apply to like probably business or something like that.
Yeah.
The sites has trained supervised shooters and supervised and shooting that has trained people that are present is important for safety. Very important. So those addressed the safety issues for me, Bob. The other side, the noise issues, those are very hard to handle. You can't control sound. A large caliber rifle can make a lot of sound. Small guns or suppressed weapons that have suppressors on them, they can reduce that noise a lot. Consideration of a neighbor's events by a texting system seems like a good idea to me. Those all address interactions with your neighbors and have to do with the noise issue. As far as safety goes for the noise, that horse could have shied for any number of reasons. So I hate to make a decision based on one event. The other side things mentioned was depredation remedies there would lead to calls, unnecessary calls. And so, and also the possibility of legal hunting, for example, for raccoons or even a stray deer that happens to come through the area, something like that. Those are all valid reasons. And if a person's shooting at a wild animal also, they may lose some of their safety issues that can create.
Backdrops and stuff.
They aren't paying attention to what they're doing sometimes, and so they can get a mental block in that hunting instant. Those are some of the things I was thinking about.
Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, on the safety side, I mean, I still looked at this and you know, the other picture shows a little bit better, but the backdrop above the berm goes out to the homes and other areas. And I mean, I can do something like that on my property, but I would be down another 60 feet and I'd be shooting. I wouldn't have anything above it. I mean, I'd have a hillside behind me. And if you think of the ranges that are out there and available to the people, what do they have on the back end of them? Big backstops of hillsides behind them to help protect where the bullet goes. And that's where I came up with my concern here and seeing that the buildings beyond the backstop, which on hunter safety, be sure of your target lies beyond it. I have a little concern there.
Yeah, there's no reason the proponent couldn't, or the person that is the shooting could periodically shave a little more and pile them a little higher, you know, those types of activities.
Got a bunch of wood backstop, big wood fence back there,
Yeah,
which is they're talking about for sound.
yeah, that's a good, no, it's not bullets or anything.
I share your concern, but it doesn't, in my mind, rise to the level of putting that restriction on the property. With due care, I think you can shoot safely there. Yeah, but I do share your
Yeah, I
concern.
mean, I live on 10 acres with a whole bunch of other people that shoot. I've chosen not to shoot there, I can. I hunt with a crossbow and I have angles I can shoot very safely, but I just chosen not to because of that. I do have gentlemen that hunt deer on their property and guys who shoot target off to the side, and I have no troubles with that, so.
It's good to have the choice.
Well, it presumes judgment, right? I mean, no matter where you're shooting, if you're not glassing and looking out to see if people are encouraging on your, you know, impinging on your range or whatever.
I'm in an open area.
I am
do have-
too. I've got a 1/4 acre section
Yeah,
down below
cool.
me and I'm on a hill. But
Yeah.
even so, I mean, you know, someone could show up on a little 4-wheeler kind of thing or something like that. But it's just judgment. And if the people don't trust your judgment, you know, from the neighbor's point of view, well, you're kind of sort of sunk anyway, because they just don't like it.
It goes without
And-
saying that if you're in a shooting area, you have to exercise due care.
You should.
There aren't too many places in this county that theoretically you couldn't hit, from which you couldn't hit another building or a home, even in the pollutants. So, you know, wherever you are, you have to be careful.
Well, and we all know urban encroachment is
It's happening.
a lot of the problem within Spokane County, everywhere, not just here. And we hear this through this committee a lot, that the people moving in from other states that don't support that or don't realize they're moving into an area that the county allows shooting in, like the petition we had out in the valley. That becomes problematic for the new folks moving in, and I don't know that you're gonna get a lot more encroachment in this area. These are all private parcels, it looks like to me. That's gonna be outside of that zone unless these parcels at some point in life get split, but in a year, all things could be different. You just don't know. So I would say for now, I still would keep it open.
I would rather protect the areas we can while we can. And if it turns out that, the encroachment is so severe in the future, we'll change
We'll be
it.
back here.
That's right.
Well, there's an old legal doctrine in tort law, very fundamental. It's called coming to the nuisance. And you learn about it in first year law school. And, you know, if there's a nuisance there, i.e. noise, for example, or I don't know, manure factory or whatever. If you know it's there and you move there, you have very limited rights to complain about it because you chose to go there. And that, you know, I think that particular doctrine is being eroded a little bit, but that is the traditional thought.
No, yeah, I agree with you. If the shooting's going on already there and you move in and then you try to get rid, you move in with the knowledge.
And with
I
respect
would
to
have that.
with respect to the changes in the real estate industry at this point in time, it was and still is, to my knowledge, the responsibility of the realtors to advise anybody moving into an area where there's shooting of any kind, whether it be by guns or bows and arrows or axe throwers, whatever. It's that realtor's responsibility to advise the new buyers and sellers, mostly buyers, of that activity. And if they don't, they're liable to be sued. Been there,
That's another comment.
Very few of them do, though.
yeah,
I was gonna say, I don't remember being
We've got-
notified
we've got-
either way.
yeah.
It's kind of a whole new dimension. We got 5 new commissioners, so I'd like to see our deliberations and all of our thoughts put on paper for them because they're gonna be a whole new
Oh,
views on the topic there.
Oh, that's a good point.
You know, I had blanked that out
It's
of
a
my
new
mind,
view, all right.
5 new commissioners.
Well, two new.
Yeah,
well,
Yeah,
Yes,
that's a really good point.
two new.
Two.
And we haven't had a hearing with them
Two additional.
since the two new ones came on board.
So you'll be a test case there, Bob.
We'll try to produce some
Mo-
findings
mostly-
that capture
mostly-
the essence of what you're saying here.
Yeah, mostly this group, so they've adopted the recommendations almost outright, in the past.
Yes,
This
I'm not
may be
sure.
one where they might want to pick on it a little, see what's going on.
You don't know what's gonna happen.
Nobody.
we don't either. Is there anything else that you need from us? Do you feel like you have enough
Yeah, I
information?
think you guys had some good discussions there, so I guess. What I got out of that was, in addition to the. Findings that we did things generally correctly, you didn't find a safety concern, you thought the backstop was adequate. So maybe did you say that the sheriff's deputy didn't bring up any safety concerns?
That's in the previous reports. We have not received Travis Pendel's report. We can call him.
You could,
That would be
He
great.
claimed he
Yeah.
would answer. We'll
Well,
find out.
Yeah.
We saw it today.
By the way, if you get homesick,
Yeah,
once,
exactly.
been there before, yeah.
On YouTube.
So they did some more work after that. Looks like. Here.
Hi, I'm calling for Travis. Okay, thank you. I don't have his current number. This is David. Do you have Mr. Pendel's number?
I
Sorry.
do if I'm allowed to share it.
You can share that with me.
Okay. Let me look it up. Came out. Here we go. Let's see.
You might want to just show her because we are recording this.
Right.
If it's-
I have to look it up. What was his name again?
Travis Pendel.
Recent false. This is gonna take a second.
Okay, that's
Sorry.
fine.
I think it was last Tuesday.
If it helps, I think he called me last Tuesday.
So perhaps,
Maybe I have an incoming call from him. It's not labeled.
Yeah. I have 50927.
Don't tell me. I need to see it because we are recording and we don't want that to be recorded. Thank you. All right. Well, that's not it. That's your number. That's a number for you. Well, it's not your number. It's aircraft related. That's an office number. And who's on tonight?
This was just before that call.
Okay. We'll try that one and this one doesn't work. Also something for you. All right, we can, yeah.
I think it might bring to the, it might ring through.
My house, it does ring. My office phone rings, work cell, that I carry it everywhere on purpose. You know, I live in a hole, my cell phone doesn't work, but maybe 80% of the times, I don't use it anyway. I don't even have one. I wouldn't have one if I didn't have to.
Voicemail box is no longer active, but he followed up with his cell phone number.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I had a hidden sheet.
I think we got it.
Behind the house, it goes down into the deep swale. Big deal. I have a feeder down there. I put up 2 blinds. I could shoot a rifle, but I just choose not to.
Yeah, I live in there's a creek comes through this. It's steep valley where I live. I got 100-yard range. There people come shoot from.
Yeah, I would struggle to figure that out if possible, but. I do have one neighbor. He has guns. He says, if I see anybody pointing at them. Raise over their head.
One day when she sure was paving the basement, and she hears this, it sounds like it's raining. They're
I'm gonna watch this
shooting shotguns. and-
So we're not gonna get
Oh,
hold of
coming down,
Travis
we had
today, but
tile
this
roofs,
was
so
the
you
right.
can hear every single tile
Oh, wow.
on the roof, you know.
Unfortunately, the
Okay.
guys that do some shotgun shooting.
She
They
kind
had
of
other
gave him an earful.
Yeah, it was good. It was
Reason
smart.
why, we know which direction we're going here. That we can't review Travis's report and then respond back to you, or have everybody respond back to me if that's easier, but. Get that emailed out to the committee.
Yeah, have to
My
do that.
my guess
Yeah.
is that nothing Travis is gonna say is gonna change anyone's mind on the committee. Based on my conversation with him last week.
So you just want the information to be shared.
Well, I think the information needs to be included with what we send to the commissioners, because it is part of
Good point.
what we had requested at the hearing and.
It kind of is on the jagged edge of the Open Public Meetings Act, though.
It would be published, though, I would imagine, Robert,
part
can
of
you
As long as
correct
we don't
me?
confer on it, we're probably okay.
As long
Yeah,
as we
it's
don't
just-
confer,
Confer on the
okay.
report outside of the meeting.
So if you send it out to everybody. And it's one-on-one responses back to you after we have received it, we're not conferring. Does that keep us in compliance?
One recommendation might be just to attach his report. As
To
a,
the commissioners'
yeah,
recommendations?
just
Yeah.
attach it.
Yeah, that I don't see any problem doing,
Okay,
provided that he produces one. Yeah. And I haven't seen it. It's
I-
possible that.
I
it-
scanned my email again too, I haven't seen
Yeah.
anything either. But he will,
Yeah.
and so why don't we just go with that, we'll
Yeah.
have his report. Included with
Okay.
our recommendations to the commissioners.
Yeah, I can do that. What we'll do is we'll draft some findings and,
Okay.
share them with you folks. If you find an issue with them, let me know and
Okay.
we'll modify it. And
Okay,
now we'll send it to you in an electronic format that will allow you to sign it.
okay.
And we'll attach
Do you
The
expect, do
deputies.
you have an idea of timeline?
this week sometime,
This week sometime,
hopefully. I think so.
hopefully.
We do have some other legislative business to do this week, several items,
Mhm.
so. We'll try for this week, and if not, early next week.
Okay,
Yeah.
So it's kind of a busy month this month for, with
Yeah.
meetings and.
Land use stuff,
Mhm.
of course.
yes.
Spring.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Oh, you guys do need to vote on the minutes.
Oh. I assume we have those good.
Here.
They're the first minutes and then I need your signature. And then I can amend them. If you guys need them.
Well, I looked at them and I would move that we accept the minutes as published.
All in favor?
But
Aye.
Okay. Perfect.
And you need to sign a copy,
Please. Need a clean copy.
you have one? No, I don't actually, I'll write down the number that I.
Oh, that's okay. Somebody else can just give you the minutes, because I obviously need. Mhm.
All right. I made notes in mine. Notes in this too. My husband would not agree with that statement.
Move to the nuisance.
Yeah,
order. Move to the nuisance. order.
I
Say it
am
first.
right.
I'm going to the
Yeah,
nuisance.
Yeah,
I'm right,
that's
I
a
adopted
great
it,
doctrine, that's awesome.
I'm really not all
that's
that
always the way it's been.
handy with
Well,
my
it
left
makes total
hand.
sense.
I throw right-handed.
Yeah, I don't show a lot of sympathy for somebody who comes in late and wants to change the world.
Hey, have y'all ever shot out at Rock Lake?
And Zoom,
Yeah.
No, but I just read about it.
Yeah, I joined that place. I haven't been able to
We
get
all
out there,
done?
but it is beautiful.
Can I get a motion to end our meeting?
Motion to end the meeting.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Sold.
friend of my neighbor just went out there and joined, I guess.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Doug Lorfeld.